Welcome to Builder Nation Procurement Edition. We are exploring how hardware startups tackle the essentials of procurement, from sourcing components to managing supply chain and controlling costs. Keep watching to hear real-world strategies from industry leaders on overcoming procurement challenges to bring impactful products to market faster. Today, we are joined by Chad Shumway, Director of Operations and Quality at Sagetech. Welcome, Chad. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So to start with this interview, present yourself, tell us something about you, about your work.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, as you mentioned, my name's Chad Shumway, Director of Operations at Sagetech. Prior to that, kind of my manufacturing background is about 20 years in manufacturing. Started out initially in the chemical world, held various roles in operations and quality management. Moved into aerospace and defense about 7-10 years ago. Worked at a startup for several years before transitioning over to Sagetech. Kind of got my start initially in my preteen years, going into a factory that my grandmother worked at. That's kind of where I got my passion, and it still carries me today.
Yeah, that's really a cool story. And now that you have this a lot of years of experience in the industry, can you give us a high-level view of the current procurement challenge in the hardware industry?
Yeah, sure. I think right now it's probably you asked me this question today. It's a little bit different than if you had asked me just a few days ago with the election here in the United States and Donald Trump coming back into office. Kind of looking back, I think we're going to have a shift in strategy, and I think we'll have there's a chance for like a major reset in foreign policy, defense spending, and tariffs. I mean, that's been a big part of his campaign. So, looking forward, it's going to be cost challenges, looking at where our supply is coming in. I imagine at larger companies right now, they're looking at, how much are we invested in China and moving that supply elsewhere. For us in the startup world, it's really looking at the costs and the tariffs that we can expect.
Yeah, I can understand that the war and everything is the influence on the work that you do, on the things that you have to choose or to look forward with the company, with the suppliers, as you said, and everything changed right now. But I want to know also what are the key differences that you see the approaches between the large established companies and the startups in terms of procurement.
Oh yeah, sure. Startups can't really afford to kind of waste time and resources. So kind of focus on, what I've done in the past is, focus on building strong relationships with, your key suppliers. Larger companies have things like, loyalty programs and bulk pricing and robust procurement teams. And often in startups, it's sometimes just the founders that are handling the procurement initially, and then moving forward, they can build out and have someone just like me dedicated to it. The big key there is building those relationships and partnerships with your suppliers. I've seen startups get some pretty good deals occasionally. You can still ask for pricing breaks that maybe you don't necessarily qualify for, but through explaining your journey and selling that to the suppliers and the vendors that you deal with, they can kind of get on board and really build a partnership.
Yeah, I hear that from other companies too, that is sometimes difficult to reach a supplier that you want when you are a startup, because they usually focus on the large companies or the big companies that have more stability, they have like more trust in the industry sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, now jumping into Sagetech, I want to know how the procurement play a role when the team is building the product.
Yeah, sure. Procurement's heavily involved. So I think, like I mentioned with the typically in a startup on the first product, there isn't a procurement team, and then the founders have to act in that manner. Again, my suggestion there is like expect that it's going to take more time. It's not just sending an email and buying a part. There are a lot of compliance things to consider. And that's why it's important to get those procurement professionals involved early on in the development stage. We have kind of specialized training, and we're focused on seeing what the market is doing and understanding where supply can come in, and how we can balance out, and kind of handle cost. I think again, it goes back to also having the time to build that partnership with your suppliers. So when you're building that first unit, right, you need to be able to build up a partnership and remain flexible, with those suppliers, while also trying to control a bit of cost as well.
Yeah, that's totally true, and I understand that part. And during all this time that you work in Sagetech, what are the most difficult, challenging procurement decisions that you had to make?
I guess they're still around cost, right? The hardest decisions are kind of leaning forward on inventory, to try and secure inventory to get a lower cost at a higher quantity, and also deliver product on time to our customer. But when cash is tight, and every dollar counts, those decisions are very, very difficult. And end of the day, you want to be able to pay your employees. So those decisions are the ones that have kept me up at night, kind of leaning forward on expensive inventory.
Yeah, and now that you are mentioning inventory and budget, do you have any specific tool that you use or software to manage these, to control these costs?
Yeah, like ERP systems are definitely, very helpful. And I think there are some lightweight ones out there for startups, that can help with that. But, just being proficient in Excel and even a bit of Python, has helped me, with looking at that.
Yeah, I think that when you have like these tools to help your work, you can focus on the important, and then everything will be more organized with those tools. Now that we are talking about the tools, that some of the challenges that you had during this time, what advice would you give to the startups who are just starting to build their procurement strategies?
I think I've kind of hinted at it a couple times already. It's in that partnership with your vendors and suppliers. Even suppliers that are overseas that you rarely see. Maybe you see them at a trade show annually. Making a point to get out to them and introduce yourself and explain, what the mission, the vision of your company, and the values of your company are, is incredibly important. And making sure as a founder that your procurement team, your supply chain operations folks understand that as well is really important. So when they're having those dialogues ongoing, they're able to express that. I've been fortunate to work with some really great suppliers throughout time, and they've been willing to bend over backwards for a small player in the startup because they buy into the vision. So,
Yeah.
That's my biggest suggestion there.
Yeah, I think that it's super important, as you said, like sell your product, sell your brand, like to make the people trust on the company, on your startup. And that's the advice. But what do you think are the procurement pitfalls that needs to avoid the companies, the startups?
Boy, a big pitfall is kind of kind of overcommitting to suppliers, like really maybe leaning forward too much, or we talk about your selling your journey, but maybe just committing to too much inventory. That can, it's not only the cost outlay there, but it also limits you, with your flexibility. Being a part of a startup, you need to be able to, pivot on a dime. And when you're locked in to, kind of a significant amount of inventory, then it limits what you can do sometimes, or you have to take a significant loss. So yeah, I think, and again, it goes back to the cash flow, and in a startup, cash flow is king. So another thing is like, considering asking for payment terms. Sometimes you feel like when you're in a startup, you don't have that leverage that a big company would have to get, a larger net terms. But by building those relationships and just asking the question, sometimes that can work to your advantage.
Yeah, I think that it's super important what you said. And thank you, Chad, for being here and shared all your ideas about procurement. I want to know if you have any social media or website you would like to share.
Sure. You can find us, at sagetech.com. I'm also, active on LinkedIn, so you can find me there.
Perfect. And for everybody that is watching, be sure to visit our website, buildernation.io. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn by following Builder Nation for the latest updates and exclusive content. Thank you all for being part of this amazing community. We will see you in the next episode. And thanks again, Chad, for being here.
Yeah, thank you.